Have you ever paused to think about the ground beneath your feet, the land that sustains us all? Land is an integral part of our existence, deeply rooted in agriculture, industry, housing, and more. With such a pivotal role, the question of who owns the land and how it's distributed has been a contentious issue throughout history. In the ancient times, the concept of land ownership was quite different. The land was not merely a commodity to be bought, sold, and exploited. It was considered a shared resource, a lifeline that nurtured the community and was preserved for future generations. Let's take a trip down memory lane to the era of the Mauryas, where we find traces of the zamindari system. In this system, the king was considered the ultimate owner of the land, and the peasants who cultivated the land paid a part of their produce as tax. This tax was their contribution to the king for the protection and services he provided. Parallel to the zamindari system, we see the emergence of janapadas, or realms, which were self-governing units. These janapadas had rajas, or kings, who maintained a decentralized form of land management. The rajas had the right to collect taxes, but the land was not solely their property. It was managed by the community, and the benefits were shared among the people, creating a sense of mutual responsibility and collective ownership. As we delve deeper into the annals of history, we stumble upon the concept of temple lands. These were lands granted to temples and religious institutions, managed by priests and used for religious and charitable purposes. These lands were exempt from taxes and were cultivated to generate income for the maintenance of the temple and to feed pilgrims and the needy. In this period, we see a complex interplay of communal, religious, and royal interests shaping the land ownership patterns. The land was more of a community resource, but with time, this began to change. As we move forward in our journey, we will see how land reforms evolved in response to changing socio-political dynamics, shaping the contours of the India we know today. The colonial era brought about significant changes in the land tenure systems. With the establishment of the British Raj, India's agrarian landscape underwent a seismic shift. The British introduced exploitative land revenue settlement systems like the permanent settlement and the Riotwari system, which were primarily geared towards maximizing revenue generation, often at the expense of the well-being of the agrarian community. Under the permanent settlement, introduced by Lord Cornwallis in Bengal and Bihar, a class of intermediaries known as zamindars was created. These zamindars were tasked with the collection of revenue from the peasants, and in return, they were given land ownership rights. However, this system often led to the exploitation of peasants, who were subjected to high rents and evictions. On the other hand, the Riotwari system, implemented primarily in Madras and Bombay presidencies, sought to eliminate the intermediaries. The peasant, or the ryot, was recognized as the proprietor of land, but was required to pay a hefty revenue directly to the state. Although the Riotwari system aimed to establish a direct relationship between the state and the peasant, it too had its drawbacks. The high revenue demands often led to indebtedness among the peasantry. The dawn of independence brought with it the promise of equity and justice. A new nation, free from the shackles of colonial rule, aspired to rectify the injustices of the past, and land reforms were a critical part of this endeavor. With the vestiges of the colonial land management system still in place, the task was enormous. But the government, driven by a vision of an equitable society, was undeterred. The Zamindari Abolition Acts, enacted by various states, were among the landmark legislations of this period. These acts aimed at eradicating the intermediaries, the zamindars, who had grown powerful under the British rule. They were a remnant of an exploitative system, a painful reminder of a time when the welfare of the peasants was secondary to revenue collection. The abolition of intermediaries was a significant step towards direct ownership, empowering the actual tillers of the land. It was a move towards a more just society, where the fruits of one's labor were not siphoned off by oppressive landlords. But the government did not stop there. Recognizing that unchecked land ownership could lead to accumulation of wealth in a few hands, they introduced the concept of land ceiling. This was a revolutionary idea that put a limit on the amount of land an individual or a family could own. The surplus lands were to be distributed among the landless, thereby aiming to bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. These early reforms were not without their challenges. There were loopholes to be plugged, opposition to be faced, and ground realities to be considered. But they were a start, a step towards a more equitable society. They were an assertion of the values that the newly independent nation held dear: justice, equality, and the dignity of labor. These early reforms laid the groundwork for a more equitable distribution of land. They were the first steps on the long road to land reform, a journey that continues to this day. The journey towards land equity has not been without its challenges. As we navigated the path of land reforms, we encountered several obstacles, intricately woven into the fabric of our agrarian society. Firstly, let's consider the issue of fragmented landholdings. Over the years, due to inheritance and population growth, agricultural lands have been divided into smaller and smaller plots. This fragmentation has severely impacted agricultural productivity, making farming less viable for many. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece on a canvas that keeps shrinking. Then there's the slow pace of implementation. Despite promising reforms, the wheels of bureaucracy often turn too slowly, delaying the benefits meant for those in need. It's like waiting for the monsoons when you're in the middle of a drought. Furthermore, awareness, or rather the lack of it, has been a significant hurdle. Many farmers and landowners are unaware of their rights or the means to seek redressal, leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. It's like navigating a maze in the dark. However, despite these challenges, we're not without hope. New approaches and solutions have begun to emerge, offering a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. Land consolidation programs, for instance, aim to pool together fragmented lands into larger, more viable units. It's like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle to reveal a beautiful, coherent picture. And then there's the computerization of land records, a giant leap towards transparency and efficiency. By digitizing land records, we're not only making them easily accessible, but also reducing the chances of fraud and disputes. It's like replacing an old tattered map with a high-resolution satellite image. While these challenges persist, new approaches and solutions continue to emerge. As we continue our quest for land equity, we must remember that every step, no matter how small, brings us closer to our goal. Yes, the path is fraught with obstacles, but remember, even the longest journey begins with a single step. In our contemporary society, land reforms continue to be a pressing issue. What was once a simple matter of tilling the soil and reaping the harvest has now become a complex web of legalities, rights, and development agendas. One of the most contentious issues of today is land acquisition for development projects. From industrial corridors to smart cities, the demand for land has never been higher. But at what cost? Often, it's the marginalized communities that bear the brunt. Displaced from their ancestral lands, they find themselves grappling with the harsh realities of urban life, without the necessary skills or resources. The concerns of tribal communities are another facet of the land reform debate. Historically, tribes in India have shared a deep, symbiotic relationship with their lands. However, their rights have often been overlooked in the name of development. The Forest Rights Act of 2006 was a step towards rectifying this. By recognizing the rights of forest-dwelling communities, the act sought to empower them and instill a sense of ownership. But implementation has been patchy, and much work remains to be done. In this digital age, technology offers a ray of hope. Satellite imagery, geographic information systems, and blockchain technology can revolutionize land record management. They can make the process transparent, efficient, and accessible. From land mapping to dispute resolution, the potential applications are immense. But technology is just a tool. The real change comes from within. It comes from acknowledging the injustices of the past, recognizing the rights of every citizen, and making inclusive policies. It comes from striking a balance between development and sustainability, between individual rights and community welfare. As we navigate these complexities, let's not forget the essence of land. It's not just a commodity to be bought and sold, it's a source of life, a link to our past, and a bridge to our future. The path to land equity is a long one, but with the right strategies and commitment, it's a path that we can navigate successfully. Over the centuries, land reforms have shaped the fabric of our society. From the pre-colonial era to the present day, efforts to ensure equitable land distribution face ongoing challenges. As we move forward, the quest for land equity continues, shaping the future of our nation.